The surface of anything seldom reveals the real treasure hidden beneath. In our last video, we said our focus in these videos is about the receiver end of the communication model of a sender and a receiver. This very basic definition of communication is really just the surface. Really delving into the receiver end of communication, listening, will reveal a chest full of treasure for your life, your work, and your relationships. Let's go beyond the surface description of communication and listening, and in this video focus on relational communication. What occurs when you listen effectively is really a group of complex interrelated occurrences. Listening is not a flat two-dimensional event. Listening is more like what is happening inside of an old Swiss pocket watch with all the intersecting gears. Listening is a multi-dimensional environment with many intersecting events. Well, enough with the analogies. What I mean to say when I describe listening in this way is listening, real listening, is complicated because it takes place in relationships. And so listening is just one of the many things going on. The name of this approach, our theory of listening, is called the relational perspective or relational model of listening. It focuses not so much on the process of what goes on between a sender and a receiver. The focus of this perspective understands listening by understanding what goes on between people communicating. We can begin to explain it this way. When you start talking with someone, you also immediately begin listening. You are watching the nonverbal cues of the other person, looking for clues as to what they are really saying. We are listening while we are talking. You cannot separate the two events in live communication. It's far from a static event that's easy to dissect. Meaning is not guaranteed just because you have a sender who sends a message and there is a listener who hopefully receives the message. The complex process of communication depends upon three key elements. If we want to be successful in communicating and listening, we must consider these elements. The first element in relational perspective is perceptual differences. I can say I love music, but my personal perception of what makes good music is influenced by my culture, my experiences, maybe my outlook on the world. We all create a world or reality that serves as a filter for any new experiences and listening experiences. Someone can say they love music, but they are referring to something entirely different than what I perceive to be enjoyable music. The second key element to consider in communicating and listening is the concept of negotiating meanings and sense-making. We cannot assume that when we start talking about how valuable families are, that the other person will understand what we're really trying to say. Their experience with family may be very different than ours. The communication and listening process is really sort of a dance where two willing partners attempt to negotiate and explore what the other means when she or he discusses something. It takes conscious work to make sense. We must be slow to judgment and willing to negotiate the process of finding the real meaning behind the words the other is speaking. The third key element to consider in communicating and listening is the concept of the communication framework. This is similar to the concept of how we recognize words on a page. We do not always look at every letter. Our minds become used to the visual shape of words and we can rapidly guess at what the word is and continue reading. We do the same in our listening. We often base our understanding of what another is communicating to us based on previous conversations or frameworks. This can often work. But this quick way of listening can get you into trouble when you assume the wrong things. The key question for effective listeners is, am I paying attention to the right cues? The study of effective listening is the process of understanding the communication and the listening event. By examining listening from the relational perspective, it's a strong reminder that communicating and listening are intrinsically interrelated. You cannot separate the two. And it reminds us that communication and effective listening does not just happen. It happens because two people want communication to occur. Maybe the question we can ask today is this: do you really want to listen? Or do you just want someone to listen to you? See you in the next video.